Hi guys, it's a beautiful day outside today, so I thought I'd take you on a little field trip. I'm out at my house right now, and try to bear with me because I'm videotaping myself and I'm not as TikTok competent as most of you are. So we're going to start talking about plants, and I thought no better time than a beautiful day to go walk outside and take a look at a couple of plants. So when you guys think of a plant, I know that normally you think, oh, it's a photosynthetic organism, it's got eukaryotic cells, they're usually green. No, I'm sure you probably don't think those things. Maybe some of you do, I hope so. But most of us, when we think about plants, you tend to walk outside and you look around and you just see this sort of wall of greenery. It's just all this green stuff. And it takes a long time to learn your plants so it doesn't look like a wall of green like this, but it definitely can be done, and it's really kind of fun to do. But I kind of want to share with you today sort of why I like plants so much and what I think so interesting about them. I can remember most of my life wanting to grow up and spend more time in the woods and maybe go live in the woods for a while, and I did that for a period of time, and part of that was learning plants in order to survive. So we're going to talk about some of the uses of plants today, and we'll walk around a little bit and see what we can find. So let's start over here just in the grass. I'm going to show you guys a bunch of stuff today that is probably right outside your house, actually. So let's take a look down here. We've got a little tiny little yellow thing. So I'll spread back everything else. This little guy right here is known as yellow wood sorrel, or oxalis. Oxalis is actually its genus name, so the scientific name is sometimes the common name too. And actually there's some seed pods forming on there, look like little crow's feet or something like that, right? This stuff's pretty interesting, and I know you've seen this before. If you've ever looked at your grass before down in your yard, it's pretty common. Let me pluck this guy off here. One of the leaves looks like a three-leaf clover, doesn't it? There we go. Now, this is not the same thing as what would make a four-leaf clover. Maybe we'll try and find some of that later. This will always have three little leaflets, and it's got some other differences. It's got a yellow flower instead of a white flower. But this stuff is actually pretty tasty, and sometimes I'll throw this stuff in my salads. There's a leaf. It's got a sort of a lemony zing to it, if you ever try some. Now, since you're going to see me try some plants, I just want to mention that you need to be careful. You need to know your plants before you just start eating plants. If you just start picking stuff up out of the grass and eating it, chances are you're going to poison yourself, right? So don't think that just because you watch Mr. Hambling's video that you know your plants, right? Because there's some dangerous plants out there we wouldn't want to eat. There's also some locations you wouldn't want to eat plants from, like say around the edges of a house where people might spray for termites or other things like that, or along the side of a road, or places where there might be a lot of pollution. So there's a lot of things to consider, and you kind of have to be a little bit knowledgeable before you just go wandering off into the woods and eating stuff. So let's keep walking along here. But this is oxalis, yellow wood sorrel, totally good in salads, real tasty stuff. There's another plant right beside it here, and this you'll probably see growing all over your yard as well. Notice how it's green, it's greenish, and we go up and it's kind of purple right on the tops, right by where the flowers are. This is called purple dead nettle, and I know of absolutely no use for this. It does have a kind of a very cool square stem, okay, but it's just a wildflower. It's really pretty, but you don't eat it. So let's keep moving along here. Oh my goodness, there's so many cool things down here. We're gonna have to skip some. I'm gonna overwhelm you with plants. So we'll walk along here and see what we can find in my yard here. It's a really nice day outside. Let's not just limit ourselves to herbaceous plants, which are usually the seasonal plants that are growing on the ground, but we can also talk about some trees. And there's a pretty cool tree right here. The deer have actually been after it with their antlers, scraped it all up pretty good there. This is actually our state tree. This is the tulip poplar, and it's got this really cool looking leaf. This is just a little baby leaf right now. It'll get quite a bit bigger. It's actually called a tulip poplar because its seed buds look like little tulip flowers. There's none of those around right now. This is super duper useful tree. I use it for all kinds of things. I'll use it to make tinder, to make fires. The squirrels use it to build their nests. You can actually see some of it fuzzing up here. The squirrels will take this stuff off and put it in their nests. It's really good stuff. But another really good use for it is making rope, and I'll try and show you guys that here. So this isn't the best tree right here in front of me, but happens to be one that is growing in a spot that I don't really need it to be growing in. So I'll see if I can set the camera up here. We're going to see if we can't take this thing out here. So I can do this. There we go. Might be looking up there for a second. There we go. Oop. There you are. Okay. Let's see if we can take this guy out of here. Go. Now we're just going to trim up, I think I'm in the picture there, trim up a few of these branches here. And then we're going to split the end of this just a little bit. Yeah, take some of this off. There we go. I don't know if you guys can see that anymore. So you can see what I'm doing there. I've just kind of split it down here. Oop. I lost focus. Just kind of splitting it down here. And I'm gonna make two halves. I don't know if I can hold the phone in my neck while I do this. Nope, not gonna happen. Going back to the ground. There we go. Well, I split a little piece out here, and I can show you the bark on this stuff this time of year, when the sap's flowing well, just peels right off. This outer bark here. A little spot there I cut that branch off. This stuff, I would need to work it a little bit, but I could actually turn this into some pretty nice rope. Just get a little piece here. There we go. This is some really strong stuff. Like I can't break it like it is, but if I had some time, I could wrap this into a really nice rope. Use it for all sorts of stuff, right? So plants have a lot of uses, not just food, but I'm sure we can find some others here that we might be able to take a taste of. Let's keep walking along, see what we run into. Oh, here's some interesting stuff right over here. So there's a plant right here. You guys can see, some of you might think you recognize this. This guy right here might look like something in your garden, so I'm willing to bet that this is actually a wild carrot, otherwise known as a Queen Anne's lace. Now they're a little tough to pull right up out of the ground without breaking off, but I'm going to try and dig this guy out here a little bit. You can see down there at the base. There it is. You can see a little bit of it. I'm pretty certain this is a wild carrot, but this brings up a really important point, because while there's not many poisonous plants in the United States, there's a handful of them that are deadly, okay? And this one right here, which I'm fairly certain is wild carrot, has a deadly look-alike known as poison water hemlock, okay? Its leaves look almost exactly the same. They're multiply divided like that, real fluffy. From a distance, you really can't tell the difference. Now, when I'm looking at plants, I always use all of my senses. I could just pluck one of these little leaves off right here, and if I just smell that, I immediately know what it is because it smells just like a carrot. And I know water hemlock wouldn't smell that way. So I have no doubt about this, but this is not one you would want to go fooling around with the first time you start to learn anything about plants. I brought a little shovel here. You can't dig a little bit of this out. They break off pretty easy, so without a shovel, you really need a stick to dig on them to get them out. Let's see if we can pull some of that guy out of there. There we go. Check out the taproot on this. Long. I bet you were expecting orange, weren't you? Because carrots are orange. Well, sorry, stay with me there. Wild carrots, their root's actually white. So it's kind of dirty, and they don't get very large. This is about the size that you'd want to eat right here. So I'd want to boil that first and definitely wash it off a little bit, but definitely smells like carrot. They're quite a bit more woody than a carrot. They kind of, than a carrot you'd plant in your garden. They don't crunch off nice and neat. They're kind of really fibrous. So cooking them is sort of a good thing before you eat these guys. But that's a wild carrot. Over here, right next to it, happens to be a mint, wild mint. And I know that not because it has any flowers, but if I look at its stem, it's definitely of the mint family because all mints have a square stem. So knowing plant families is really actually pretty important to learning your plants. Once you learn the families, you can tell quite a bit about a plant, even if you don't know its name. And also a giveaway on this one is it's a type of mint that has kind of a purpley underleaf. Kind of see that there. But it's got a very square stem. Now, not sure, I'd have to look up exactly which type of mint this is, but I could definitely crush some of this up. And I wish you could smell it because it's really powerful stuff. So I might smash that up, put some in some more. Oops, I accidentally hit the power button there. So we're back on here, and I've come across another plant. This is known as multiflora rose. It is a rose bush. It's a wild rose bush. It doesn't make really big, beautiful rose flowers. It does have flowers, and they smell quite nice, but this is not native to America. This got planted here. It's from another country, and it's some really nasty stuff. It's got some huge, nasty thorns on it, and it does take over. But I was looking at this thing, and down deep inside, look at that. Little bird nest, huh? It's pretty cool. No eggs in there. Looks like it might be a robin nest. So I'm gonna roll up my hillside here because I saw something up top. Since we're on the topic of invasive species, there are a lot of plants that didn't come from America, that have been brought over from other countries, that have found their ways here. People have released them into the wild, people planted them on purpose, and they've caused a lot of problems with our native wildlife. And one of those, which I just noticed up my hillside, I smelled it actually before I saw it, is a small tree called autumn olive. I'm gonna pull the branch down here. Oh, I hate the smell of this stuff. It's all over the place this time of year. I'm sure you're seeing some of this. It's got these whitish underside leaves, kind of an olive color. It's got these bell-shaped flowers hanging down from it. It's not very, it's a pretty plant, but it's some nasty stuff. It's real thorny, takes over, crowds out all the native plants. I'm losing my, there we go. Autumn olive. We'll look at some other invasive species as we go. The thing about invasives is that they usually sprout up in the spring before any other plant comes up. So they kind of cover over the ground, and a lot of our native wildflowers and native plants don't get an opportunity to grow, and oftentimes nothing eats them. Now in the case of that autumn olive, the birds like its berries, and so they transport it all over the place, and it's just kind of spread pretty much everywhere in the US. Walk along here. Oh yeah, another autumn olive. You can see the color there. It's pretty stuff. It's just full of thorns, and it just covers up all the native plants. Ooh, there's a pretty one. Here's some golden ragwort. That's a really nice looking flower. So I don't know of anything you can do with this, but golden ragwort, just a pretty plant. It's all over this time of year. I'm sure you're seeing these bright yellow flowers everywhere. Really pretty looking stuff. When the leaves first come up, they actually look like this, and they're sort of purpley actually. Golden ragwort. We'll keep cruising along. There's some more ragwort. Lots of stuff. Oh, looking over this direction, got an interesting plant here. It's got all these tiny little shoots coming up, kind of spreads out like that. A whole bunch of little suckers come off the same plant, and it grows up. It's just big enough to barely be considered a tree. It doesn't have any flowers on it, but I can tell from the leaf and the way that it's growing that this is witch hazel. Now, you might have seen witch hazel sold in the drugstore because some plants are useful for drugs. In fact, a huge portion of our modern medicines actually come from plants. We either get them directly, or more modern day, we figured out how to synthesize the actual compounds that the plant makes. So if you think about stuff like aspirin, all sorts of things, even a lot of the narcotics that get used to help suppress pain, those all originated in plants, and we've modified them and figured out how to make them. Some of them we actually still get from plants. But anyway, this plant, witch hazel, is actually fairly useful as an astringent, helps stop bleeding, and you can actually find things infused with witch hazel bark, witch hazel leaves at the drugstore. Kind of cool. Nature's drugstore out here. Walk along a little further. Oh, here's some nasty stuff. Look down here. So if you can see, I'm not going to touch this, but right there, get it in focus, is a sprout of some poison ivy coming up. Those of you that had poison ivy know it's a pretty nasty rash, causes all these blisters all over your skin, it itches really bad. It's actually the oil from the plant that gets you. Once you blister up, you can't actually pass that on to somebody if you pop your blisters. That's just your body reacting to it. The way that you get it is by the oils. So as soon as you wash your skin and wash your clothes, you're not transmitting it. It's not like a transmittable disease. It's just your body reacting to this. And some people actually aren't even allergic to it. So you've probably heard leaves of 3, let it be. Those aren't actually leaves. That whole thing is a leaf. So those are called leaflets. So maybe it should be leaflets of 3, let it be. It can grow on the ground. It can get pretty tall too. And it also likes to vine up trees. And you can see here's some, oh, look at it. It's very red right now. Those leaves will eventually turn green. If you look at the vine, there we go. The vine it's very hairy looking. All these little tendrils come off to cling to the tree. I am not going to touch that stuff. I am super allergic to that. Look at that nasty stuff, right? Oh, there's a hairy looking vine right there. Ugh. Some big leaves. So poison ivy, definitely wouldn't want to eat that, right? It is poisonous. Okay. Keep wandering around. Oh, there's some taller stuff. There's some taller poison ivy there. Just starting to come up. Lovely. It's great having that in my yard. You know, birds aren't allergic to poison ivy, and that's actually how it moves around, is the birds eat the berries. I mean, that would pretty much kill most of us, but they spread it around all over the place. Oh, we've got a good one here. I don't have my shovel with me, so we're not going to dig it up, but you probably know this guy as the dandelion. And they've got this very milky sap. It's actually a latex sap. You can see it coming out there. It's very, very bitter. Dandelion is a very edible plant. So you can fry up the heads of the flowers in some batter. I've had them lots of times. They're very tasty. The young leaves you can throw in salads. Now, if you don't like bitter things, you're not going to like them at all. That's what the leaves look like. There's a dandelion leaf. Yep, they're pretty bitter though. Unless you like bitter things, you're probably not going to like the dandelion. Now, the root of the dandelion is a big taproot. It's bigger than the wild carrot, and you can actually dig that up and roast it and make coffee. Now, it's not caffeinated, so that's the bummer there, but it does taste a little coffee-ish, I would say. I wouldn't say it tastes like coffee, being a coffee connoisseur myself, but it's coffee-like. So you just kind of grind up the root and roast it. You can even buy it in some health food stores. Keep moving along here. Oh, here we go. It's a little hard to see, but down here, there's some grass that's a little bit darker green than the other grass. So it's been mowed off, unfortunately. It would get a bit taller. This is known commonly as onion grass, and you've probably smelled it if you've mown the yard and you've hit some of this. But you can, of course, eat the leaves. You can crush these up. You can throw them in some soup or some salad, cut them up. But the bottoms of these, if you've ever pulled one up, I try and get up, I'm going to rip them all out. I can see if I can get one here without tearing it off. There's a dandelion beside it. I'm not going to be able to get one without a stick. The bottoms of these actually have little bulbs. Just like, oh, there we go. Just like an onion. And that little bulb right there is totally edible. Tastes just like an onion. It's pretty strong stuff, actually. Like, you really wouldn't want to eat it raw, but cooked, they're really good. I throw them in food all the time when I'm out in the woods. Nice little onion bulb. Yeah, a whole bunch of them in there. I don't know if you guys can see that. But just underneath the dirt there, a whole bunch of them I pushed up there with that stick. Whole little meal right there, right? Let's kind of continue out along here. There's my barn. Oh, focus on this thing. It's not doing so good. There we go. And we talked a little bit about four-leaf clovers. Four-leaf clovers are actually part of something called a white clover, and their leaflets look really similar to that oxalis because they come in leaflets of 3 like that, but they would have a white flower. So this is the clover that you might look through the grass and actually find some 4-leaved ones. I don't see any just off the hand there, but that's a genetic condition that some of the plants have, and they can produce 4 leaflets. So it's, of course, good luck, right? But those are actually edible too. The flowers, you can fry those up and eat those. You can grind them up and eat them. Oh, just to give you an example of some of the invasiveness, these right here are called bush honeysuckle. And a lot like that autumn olive, I mean, almost everything you see in that picture right there, all that green is bush honeysuckle. That's an invasive species at work. So you can imagine there's like no little wildflowers growing underneath that. It's just dark. We can even look underneath there. Look, every single thing is crowded out, and the only thing that's living there is that invasive. It's not even native. Yep. So I thought finally we'd take a little walk. I got bored the other day and cut down a tree and made a cool little bridge over my creek here. Can see that, huh? Check that out, my lovely little creek. Got some little waterfall going on there. Not sure I can do this with my phone. Try and hold my phone, there we go. Yeah, it's all right, huh? Actually made myself a pretty cool little path here that I could run on when I got bored. It goes up this way. There's a pull-up bar up there. I thought we'd come over here though and take a look at one of these. So we saw some poison ivy, which is a real nasty vine. There's other vines that are actually useful. And this one right here is a wild grapevine. And yes, at the top, this will sometimes produce wild grapes. They're much smaller than the grapes you get in the store, but they're just maybe almost as tasty. They're a little different. Got more seeds in them anyway. But the bark on this is very flaky. Notice it doesn't have those hairs on it, but there are vines that are quite toxic. So you don't want to mess around. You wouldn't want to just grab a vine and start playing with it like I'm doing here if you're just walking out in the woods, unless you know what you're doing. So I'm just kind of rubbing off a lot of the outer bark on this guy. Make it clean it up a little bit. It's pretty dusty. Okay, so now, I don't know if this one's alive or not. It doesn't seem very live. Let's find out. This time of year, sometimes these vines are very useful. Obviously, you could eat the seeds, but the vine itself can be very useful for another purpose. Whoa! I don't know if you saw that, but look at this thing. Oh my goodness. Can you see it? Oh, see it dripping? Pure water coming out of that. Not a lot. Sometimes a year, so much water will come out of these, it's almost like a fountain. It's like being in the rainforest. And the bottom end's dripping a lot better. Usually the bottom end works better. You can see it. Yeah, there we go. And yeah, you could just literally just get a drink. And that's actually clean, pure water coming out of that. There's no bacteria in there. Now, if there was a chemical spill over here, that'd be a problem. But that vine has filtered out all of the bad bacteria. And you can see how porous the wood is right there. It's just pouring out water. Might take a little while, but I could get a pretty good drink. All right, guys, that's it for today. There's a little quiz about the plants we talked about. Should hopefully be pretty easy for you if you watch this. And you guys have a great day. Hopefully you can get a chance to go outside and enjoy the weather a little bit.